In the original Ghostbusters movie, our heroes tried to explain to the mayor just how bad it's going to get for the city. They tell him it's going to be biblical, but the mayor never read the Bible. He needed more information. So the Ghostbusters summed it up for him. Real wrath of God type stuff. Fire and brimstone coming from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling. 40 years of darkness. Earthquakes, volcanoes, the dead rising from the grave. Finally, Dr. Peter Venkman capped it off by shouting, "Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria." The mayor got the point. When the end times come, you're going to see a lot of strange things. And nothing stranger than dogs and cats living together. That's about as freaky as Beamers and Harleys coexisting. If you ever see Beamers and Harleys on a ride together, you can be sure the end times are near. That's why I'm prepping for the worst. Because recently, I went on a ride. There were 11 of us, and believe it or not, it was a mixture of Beamers and Harleys. I'm surprised the news media wasn't out to cover it. I guess they thought it was too wild of a conspiracy theory to be true, so why bother? When we started out, there were 6 riders in front of me, 2 behind, and halfway to breakfast we were going to pick up 2 more to make it 11. There were 7 hogs and 4 beamers. Now that's quite biblical. Revelation says the opening of the 7 seals, and we had the revving of the 7 hogs. In China, BMWs are called Bao Ma, which means precious horse. And we had 4 beamers, and everyone knows about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Another strange thing, this was the first time for the riding group that a gold wing was nowhere in sight. All of this was looking like the end times for sure. But what's with all this strangeness between beamers and hogs anyway? Is it all hype or is there something really there? Why can't motorcyclists just get along? There's stereotypes on both sides, but where do those come from? Is any of that based in fact? There are plenty of people who have ridden both BMW and Harley-Davidson motorcycles. You can find people who own both bikes at the same time. How do they manage it? Are they simply bipolar? What kind of Jekyll and Hyde character could justify owning both types of bikes? Don't they know it's like cats and dogs living together? I tried researching the rift between Beamers and Hogs and found there's a lot of tribalism, bad blood, and confusing finger-pointing going on. I don't think anyone can get into a serious conversation about this without pissing someone off, which is too bad. Some things seem true on both sides, but don't dare bring them up in mixed company unless you want a dust-up of epic proportions. Someone explained the difference this way. BMW riders post questions like this on social media. Harley riders really don't give a shit. Some said it's the difference between leathers and textiles. It's a style and attitude thing. It's a difference between all the gear all the time and no gear but lots of chrome and patches. Some say either way you go, it's about group identity, and you have to wear the uniform to be in the group. But what's the uniform about? What is it signaling? One t-shirt said, "Harley riders know that they show. BMW riders show that they know." Someone else said one bike is better to look at and one is better to ride. But they didn't identify the bikes. I guess they left that as being obvious. And of course it is to the firm believers on both sides. I heard it said that one bike is about creature comforts, functional stuff. The other bike is all about chrome and custom paint. Somebody said that BMW owners are riders and hog owners are bikers. What's the difference? The answer to that changes with who you ask. Many make a big deal about hogs being an American bike versus Beamers coming from Germany. Much of that is true, but that's been slipping away over the years. Hogs may be assembled in America, but not all the parts are made here. It's unknown the percentage of how much of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle is actually manufactured in the U.S., since it varies from model to model, year to year. The parts not made in the U.S. are made in Taiwan, Italy, Germany, China, Mexico, and Japan. Even the iconic HD clothing is manufactured with overseas input. Example from Fresh Design Group International Limited, based in the UK. And as far as HD being an American company, the largest shareholders are Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, along with foreign investment groups. But the main difference between Beamers and Hogs seem to be cultural. It's an attitude in the way one approaches riding a motorcycle and what constitutes fun around it. Many pointed to the stark difference between the fun and exciting hog rallies and the boring in comparison BMW rallies. Everyone agreed you'll find more booze and bare breasts where hogs gather. One person put it this way: a Harley rider's best times are off the bike with friends. A BMW rider's best times are on the bike with friends. The party for the BMW rider at a rally is getting up at 6 a.m., heading out on the bike at 8 a.m., riding great roads on a spirited pace, stopping for lunch, returning to great roads until dinner, then a brew or two after the bike is put away for the evening, some story swapping, then early to bed so the next day can be a repeat. The party for the Harley rider at a Harley rally happens with the kickstand down for most of the day. Which one of these is boring depends on your perspective. There's no doubt that hogs have a dominant cultural vibe with strong roots that go back to the veterans of World War II, who picked up tens of thousands of war surplus Harleys and formed the first motorcycle riding clubs. The sound of the distinctive hog engine is solid Americana, made even more famous in music and movies. There's a pride of belonging that goes along with being able to participate in such a heritage. BMW can't match that. Both companies started making bikes in the early 1900s and made their own kinds of history in fits and starts. Before 1920, motorcycle racing was more popular than baseball, and the two big race contenders were Harley-Davidson and Indian. Harley-Davidson fielded a race team called the Wrecking Crew that started winning big, and to celebrate, the race leader would put a little pig named Johnny on his gas tank to do victory laps. The mascot earned the team the name the Harley Hogs because they were hogging victories at all the races. Over time, the hog name stuck. The company even got Wall Street to recognize hog as their ticker symbol in 2006. Beamers have some history too. Their post-war race bikes were good enough so that at one time the rules of the Isle of Man races were changed to exclude them. But BMW as a company advanced by manufacturing cars, not motorcycles. It wasn't until 1972 when an ex-Marine named Bob Lutz joined the company to sell cars that BMW started taking bikes more seriously. Bob noticed that BMW motorcycle division was in disarray and not a company priority. He changed that with the release of the R90S, a 900cc boxer motorcycle that invented sports touring. BMW's motorcycle innovations since then have only increased as the popularity of the bikes worldwide have taken off and received praise from reviewers. Quite an evolution for a company that started by making aircraft engines. It's funny, but when you're out on the road in high gear going fast, all of this competitive BS seems to fall away. In the moment during the ride, there is nothing but the ride. And whether or not you have an RT or an electric glide doesn't really matter. It's all about the moment and the ride. BMW's slogan says, "Make life a ride." And Harley's slogan says, "Live to ride, ride to live." Both slogans are highly compatible. They could belong to either company, and who would care? As I rode along with the Harleys, we all loved flying through the wind on a motorcycle, and only the rush of the moment mattered. In that enjoyment, we were one. And when we all put the kickstands down and shared some breakfast together, did it work? Can we sit down together and just enjoy being motorcyclists, enjoying the thing we like to do? That was the real test. That's where all those cultural divides would raise their ugly heads if they really mattered. From all the online hype, I expected something ugly. But the opposite happened. There was no problem. There was no divide, not as long as we kept it simple. We were bikers, enjoying the ride. Everything else falls away within the moment. That's all that matters. If this is the end of times, bring it on.